the first question I get 99% of the time is, what was that like as a young person, like growing up? I usually just say, you know, summary statement, it was a difficult childhood, and just kind of leave it at that. So my name is Fallon,
I'm
and you
Jason.
are.
At a 2 second
um,
delay.
we are childhood best friends, and we're adult best friends too.
Absolutely.
We're both
We've known each other since 83. I kind of figured out on my walk this morning. I think it's about 83. But so obviously, neither of us remember meeting each other.
83. What a time to be alive.
hmm
Yeah, no, I don't remember meeting you. You've pretty much just always been. Our families were super close our whole lives. Um, your brother was in my wedding. So just, yeah, we're all just
Right.
simpatico, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
But additionally, we are both ex-members of the Jehovah's Witness organization. Um, so that really is the crux of what led us here.
Yeah.
Crux? Is
And
that?
I think so. That's where it works. I think it also is worth mentioning that to the point of who knows what they're doing. You woke up from the religion how much more before me? I'm at 4 years, 5 years, and you're at what, 9 or 10?
So it's probably getting close to that. Yeah, yeah. But officially, like 2016. So
Yeah.
that's 7 years.
Yeah, when you reached out to me because you're like, "Hey, I think that guy quit," then it was just the best. It was, because when you first quit, you're also at an all-time low of friends.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Friend Tank is on E for certain. And for anybody that doesn't know, when you leave the organization, you're not able to just leave with no consequences. You're not able to just choose to leave. So if you, for any reason, like separate yourself from the organization, there is they won't call it punishment, but there is a punishment. You're essentially shunned by your friends and family that are still members. They're instructed not to speak to you, to cut off contact, so on and so on. So I had already been out for a while. Um, and to my knowledge, at that time, you were still in. So I didn't try to contact you. I didn't want to seem like I was harassing you or anything. And I know the rest of your family's still very much involved. So just by chance, a mutual friend of ours one day brought your name up in conversation. And I said, oh, I haven't talked to him in many years.
who was
Um,
that?
uh, well, I won't tell you on here, but I'll tell you.
Okay, I
um,
don't remember. Probably told me already.
anyway, so I said, oh, yeah, I haven't talked to him in a long time. And the mutual friend said, I'm pretty sure he's out. And I said, what do you
hmm
mean? And he said, well, I recently read like a tirade about the organization. And I thought, oh, no way.
Oh
So,
yeah,
yeah,
I
I
think I
reached out and
likened
you're
any
like,
sort of god that would destroy 99% of humanity to have more in common with the Third Reich than a loving father, and that really sealed the deal. That
yeah, I
was
feel like
the
for
only
you,
part I
there was
remember
no
of
going
that.
back after that.
Yeah, yeah, I zipped it
Um,
up tight.
so yeah, we've actually just been able to be friends again for the last few years. But even that really wasn't what made me want to do this. Um, I've just talked to so many um, former members, probably in our age group, some younger, some older, and so many of them are just traumatized by the organization and the way they were brought up. And I feel like there's just not enough awareness out there for the mental health issues that face former members. And then I was reading this article that was actually published back in the 70s, um, which you said yourself was sort of like the heyday for the organization. Um,
Oh yeah,
and
they
it
were
just
growing
talked
leaps and
about,
bounds back then.
yeah, really expanding rapidly, especially in the United States. Um, and in the article, it studied several members and showed how they're dramatically at higher risk for certain mental health disorders. Um, and I was talking with some people on some online forums, and they talked about how the suicide rate is so high among members, and especially members once they get on the outside. And that just, I don't know, that just devastated me. Like, just as a human being, like, that's just so crushing to think that, you could go through the trauma of separating yourself from the organization if it's all you ever known. And then once you're on the outside, you feel like you don't have any other options except to, do the unthinkable. So I just feel like,
Yeah.
there's people, especially our age, that could benefit from knowing that there's other options.
Yeah,
There's
and
a
just
whole,
it's stuff that we all consciously know, of course, that that's not the only choice, but also just that even if you're not at that point, that it can go very well because we have two very different worldviews right now.
yes,
You are a Christian and I'm an atheist. And by atheist, I mean, I don't think there is any specific God, but I'd be open to evidence that there was. But so I'm not one of those, I know there isn't, everyone's wrong, except for me. But the point
right.
is that we have very, very separate belief system now, but we're still just best friends. We get along unbelievably well. I mean, this is the most formal we've talked and ever. We're usually just
Yeah,
being ridiculous,
in many
but
years.
and it's I guess that being is it because sometimes I've noticed it's almost become a cliche that you leave the organization, you become an atheist. And
Right.
so I realize I'm making myself the
Like a
cliche in
punchline.
this. Yeah, but people, I think there's also people thinking, and I've heard people express, I couldn't do that. I couldn't live without any hope. And I guess my point is that's not the only option. We have both of us, and you are successfully engaged in your beliefs, and it it can be successful either way, I guess is my point.
Yeah, I agree. And I would want people to know that the purpose of this just ongoing discussion, it's not me trying to convince you of Christianity.
Right.
That was your whole existence for decades, and you're well versed in the gospel. And I
Yeah.
know that you're not trying to sell me on atheism because I'm not an idiot, and I have read all their scientific platforms and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
data that they use for that. So it's not about convincing each other. Convictions, whatever side of the fence you land on, are personal, and you need to develop those for yourself. But it's important to understand that you can have, healthy, meaningful, constructive friendships and relationships outside the organization. Um, there's a place for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And talking about mental health, I have really gotten a lot from getting therapy. It's helped me a
Oh
lot,
yeah,
just process stuff. My tendency, just to be completely straightforward, is process stuff with alcohol. That's what I'd like to do,
sure.
But I've with going through therapy instead of, because that doesn't process anything. It just makes you feel more depressed. But and I'm not on some Alcoholics Anonymous soapbox or anything like that either. But going to therapy and learning how to sit with the discomfort of being shunned, the absolute nightmare of losing all the people you love, um, and the frustration of them thinking they're doing it for your good. It's so much to process. And I get a ton from a therapist. And I had this therapist who was a Mormon. I finally figured out that's what he was. I was like, oh, this isn't working because he's in like a cousin of the religion I was in. So,
Right.
and then I finally ended up with a therapist who was, and I still have her. She's great, uh, um, and she was a former a non-denominational, very similar to like came from the Millerites, same as Jehovah's Witnesses did type of religion. So
Interesting. I didn't know that.
huge help,
I mean, I didn't
massive
know
help.
that was her background.
Yeah, and she specifically has on her website that she helps with religious trauma. So
Wow.
if you're Googling that, if anybody's out there Googling who to get, what kind of look for religious trauma is the term they use. So might help you
It's
find
just
a
such a
therapist that can help.
specific need.
Oh, it is, and there's not that many of them, so it's a rather a task to find one. And of course, there's problems with affording it, and it is expensive. But it need not be $300 a session, and different
Right.
insurances and stuff. But So I guess I'm just saying I appreciate that's a huge challenge too, because I went through a couple of therapists before her before I realized, oh, I need somebody that specializes in religious trauma.
And when you're on the outside, it takes a while, I feel like for me personally, to even admit that you have a mental health need. When I was married to my first husband, while I was still actively involved with the organization, when I was seriously starting to have some doubts about the doctrine that they were teaching, um, it caused a severe depression, like almost to the point of having suicidal thoughts myself. I was definitely having invasive thoughts that were not welcome there. And
Mm-hmm.
there's my there's my motion detector light clicking off. But I voiced those concerns to him. I said, I'm feeling anxious about things. I'm having these serious doubts, and it's really like shaking me to my core. And I feel like I should talk to someone. So his initial response was, "You're not depressed. You're feeling sorry for yourself, or you're attention seeking." Um, and I persisted in the beginning. I said, I really feel like I need to talk to someone because something is happening that I don't want to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and his next response, which was later echoed by the church, was, "Why would you seek advice, or why would you seek counsel from someone on the outside?" So
Yeah.
they definitely push the narrative of us versus them, that
Mm-hmm.
there's this big separation or divide, and that any mental health services that you think you may need can be solved by the church itself. And that's just not true.
Yeah, it's very much it not a Christian Scientist almost. Well, let's not go to doctors because now Jehovah's Witnesses do believe in going to the doctor, but for some reason there's a big gap on mental health. So they just
Right.
don't want you to go to the doctor or go to a specialist for that, someone who knows what they're talking about. Because of course, naturally, God knows best. But I mean, the argument for could be that well, maybe God wants you to go get a therapist. So it very much you have a broken leg, you got to go get that taken care of by an orthopedic surgeon or just go get a cast. You cannot do without that, or at least it's extremely hard. Um,
Right. There's no risk of losing a member by setting a broken leg, but there is
mhm.
the risk of losing your membership by resetting a broken thought process.
Ooh, that was good. Look at you.
Like that. I've had that one in the chamber for a
Was that
while.
just?
No, I
Oh, what
haven't.
was that? You ready with that?
I just
Okay,
thought
no,
of
that was good.
it.
Just came. Yeah, yeah. That's exactly it. That's brilliant. Hmm. Yeah, I found a great deal of benefit from it. But if you can't do that, I don't know what's some other options for people. I mean, I think that a lot of people, younger and older, are maybe coming together in online forums. There's a lot of positivity there. There's always you got to be careful,
Oh
but
yeah, self-made community for sure.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And just I don't know. There's just a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of YouTube channels, and some of them, do interviews, and just getting the sense that you're not by yourself is just huge. It was for me at the beginning before I got the therapy.
And I think that would be the overall message that I would want anyone that's listening to take away. Like if there was one thing to take away, um, if you feel like you're considering leaving, or you already left and you just feel like you're at a dead end, like there's no place I fit in, or I don't have any friends. Like we said, it's so hard to make those initial connections when you do separate yourself. um, I would just say, like, we're here, we're normal, healthy, regular people.
Hmm.
And we'll be your friends. I got
Yeah,
room.
yeah. And I would say happier than I've ever been. And I've only been out for
Oh,
5 years. So, oh my goodness, it's so
absolutely.
much better. Just the satisfaction of life. First of all, just not getting up to go out and service on a Saturday morning is delightful. But it's also just there are no all my friends are my friends because they want to be my friend. And there's no
Yes.
false friends. There's no you have to do something with them because it's in the congregation. None of that. It's a very genuine environment, but it takes some time to get there. And in the words of Peter, you should be kind to yourself. Yeah, I think Peter, the Apostle Peter, is the only guy that said anything that was really good, in my opinion, as psychologically advised, and it got rejected. But that doesn't matter. He said, "Be kind to yourself," and we should. It is something that I've had to learn is to not. You're in the religion. You're so judgmental of yourself, and then
Oh, never
to
did that.
learn to
Never did
not be that way, and then to learn when you're not doing so well, instead of man, you got to get it together. Being okay, buddy, what's going on? Let's talk about this, and
that.
just
Let's get to the
being as
root of the
kind as
issue.
you'd be to your friend. You know,
Right.
yeah. Sorry, what?
Yeah, just to get to the root of the issue, like why are you not doing so good?
Mm-hmm.
Rather
Mm-hmm.
than, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like let's
Yeah.
kind of, dig into what the underlying issue is.
Yeah.
And the same for me, my life since leaving the organization officially, um, like I can't even really explain like how much better it is. Um, I'm remarried to someone who has never been a witness. And he's incredible. He was my number one supporter when I told him I had this crazy idea. I said, "Hey, I know this sounds nuts. I'm thinking about doing a podcast." And of course he was like, "Yeah, let's do it. Like
He's
let's pull
awesome.
the trigger." I told him um, like what I wanted the premise to be. And um, of course he's, heard a lot of the stories about the more traumatic events that led up to me leaving. He knows all that. Um, but he's incredible. Um, but also, like you said, my friend circle has changed. People that are genuine, that aren't my friends because they're told to be my friends. Um, People that really strive to be, sincere in their um, in their communications, and making time for each other, making time to hang out, learning your interests, things like that. My education has changed totally. I'm sure we'll talk at some point about how education is not really a thing in the organization, not so much. Um, but I was able to, complete my education, and just everything, my career, financial, emotional, mental, spiritual, everything is just so much better. It's hard to really
So much
even
better.
describe it all.
Yeah, it is. And I think we on our intro episode here, it's kind of a, we might have one viewer, but that's okay. And it's easy. It's almost like, which one do we attack? What category? But I think mainly, if I'm understanding you correctly, fearless leader, what we're looking mainly, it's mental health on this episode, which
Yeah,
obviously we will dig more into. But just remember, it gets really good. It can get really just so much better than it is in the cult and
yes,
mental health.
absolutely. And then a friend of mine asked me, why did you choose the title for your show? Like, why are you calling it Difficult Childhood? Um, so when I meet someone new, I mean, obviously, the first thing I share with them is not like, "Oh, I grew up in this organization that most people think is a cult, and XYZ was my childhood." That might not be something I want to share like right off the bat.
Right.
But whenever people eventually do find out, the first question I get 99% of the time is, "What was that like as a kid? What was that like as a young person, like growing up that way with no Christmas, no birthdays?" Because for most people, that's what they know about it. Oh, you don't celebrate Christmas, you don't celebrate birthdays.
Hmm.
So I might not want to get into like the nitty gritty of it with someone right off the bat. So
Yeah.
I usually just say, you know, summary statement, it was a difficult childhood, and just
Yeah.
kind of leave it at that. If they want to know more, I mean, I'm obviously welcome, or they're welcome to ask, or we might discuss it deeper at another time. But that kind of just lets somebody know right off the bat, like, it was rough for a lot of people. So it's not necessarily like dinner conversation. That's just
Hmm.
a good way to kind of summarize it. It was difficult. Yeah.
It was. And I was having a random thought this morning while driving around, and I thought about how even though we're saying it's a difficult childhood, we're not here just bashing on our parents.
Oh,
Because I
absolutely.
think I know for a fact that all four of our parents our each of our parents loved us. And in case of,
Yes.
you lost your mother recently, she loved you very much, and your father still loves you. Both of my
Yes.
parents really love me, and I think they worry about me every day. And I think
Oh,
they
absolutely.
are wish I would return because that's what they think is the truth.
Yes.
So, but it does make even the most well-meaning parents significantly worse. And we can
Yeah.
get into later why that is specifically, what teachings just mess kids up, and then what physical things just mess kids up. And but yeah, it isn't one thing where we're going to go ahead and just bag on them.
Yeah. It's not a bashing session. It's not a dig. Their motivations were right. Um, or, pure. Their
Hmm.
methods were flawed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Well, I need to upgrade to better Zoom because it says I have 9.5 minutes left. So next time I'll
It's
get
all
better
right.
Zoom.
I think it's a good start. I think we're off to a good start.
Yeah, we'll see if it goes anywhere, and hopefully our viewer enjoys it and finds it useful.
Viewer, singular,
Just, just that guy.
just the one. Let's
All
call
right,
him Fred. Just for kids.
Fred. Oh man, he's classic Fred. Always tuning in. Love that guy.
Loyal.
Uh, all right, you want me to put an end to this here? I'll connect
Sounds
with you
good.
after this.
Put an end to it.
Actually, we
That
could
sounds like
probably just.
euthanasia.
I'll just trim the end here. We still have 8.5 minutes now. We can just talk. We'll just cut it, and then they won't be listening.
Okay.
Who was that you uh that told you
Oh,
about me?
okay. So it was